friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you being here. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to rant for a little bit because I am so tired of every single Monday. I flip on Monday Night Raw and I get the same crap. So I am going to take some time out of my schedule to appeal to the powers that be over there at WWE. I'm going to offer up some ideas to make Raw better right now. They can go in this Monday, well, today's Monday, so they'd have to do it next Monday unless they've seen this early enough. And they can implement these 5 or 6 easy changes to make Raw better now. And guess what? You can keep it at 3 hours long, even though we all know that that's part of the problem, is that Raw should probably be 2 hours long. Every other wrestling program that's any good is 2 hours long. SmackDown, NXT, AEW, Impact. Those are all quality programs, all 2 hours. But they're stuck at 3 hours. You know why? Because they get that ad revenue they have for years now. And that's not going to change. Another thing that's not going to change, the idea of getting rid of Vince McMahon, that's not going to happen at least this week. Although I suspect we've heard things that Vince McMahon has been a little less there these days, but seemingly every Monday he shows up, he rips up whatever script is there, and then he gives, and then he just rewrites the entire thing. That's probably not going to change either. But if he adheres to these 5 things, then Raw could get better tonight, right now, immediately. Anyways, let's start off with number 1. Open and close Raw in the middle of action or on cliffhanger. So you open the show in the middle of action. How great is it? And this doesn't happen very often anymore, but every once in a while, Raw would open 5 o'clock, right? 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And you'd hear a bell ring and immediately things would happen. Or even better, you open up and it's just chaos. There's a brawl going on backstage or in the ring or something. And we're there. We're diving right in the middle of the action. Instead, what do we get at 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock these days? What do we get? We get at least a minute to 2 minutes in recaps. We know what's happened. We don't need a refresher. We don't need to know what happened last week. It's like a soap opera. I don't know if soap operas do recaps or not. They probably do. I'll be honest with you. Also, disclosure, right in front of me, I've got the notes that I jotted down. This isn't all just stream of consciousness. So, yeah. And if you guys remember this a couple weeks ago on SmackDown, it started off with, it was like a 40-minute long segment, which was like some short promo stuff with Daniel Bryan and Cesaro, followed by a tag match with Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Seth Rollins, and somebody else. I forgot who it was. And it was great. Maybe it was Jey Uso. It was fantastic. It was awesome. It was 40 minutes. So by the time you're done with that, man, you are deep into that episode. And I feel like Raw doesn't do that nearly enough. I have a quick breakdown here. I have a little breakdown of last week's Monday Night Raw. It started with a 2-minute recap. We had a 2.5-minute backstage segment featuring a coin flip, which, by the way, nothing in wrestling should ever be determined via a coin flip. It's lazy writing. Everything should be based off of in-ring competition, personal conflict, and drama. Then we had a 7-minute promo. A 7-minute promo between AJ Styles, Amos, and The New Day. 7 minutes. After that, those two teams had an 11-minute, 43-minute match. However, 3.5 minutes of that was taken up by commercial. So that leaves about what? 8-minute, 13-minute match. That's what I have written down here. I don't know if my math is right on that. So basically they had a long match that we got to see 1 minute more of than the promo stuff that preceded it. No, I don't care if it's CM Punk, Stone Cold Steve Austin, or The Rock. 7 minutes gets to be tedious. I don't care who you are. 7 minutes is too much. Instead, we need action. We need to open on action. We need to have action now as soon as Raw starts. For when Raw closes, we need a long main event. I'm talking entrances need to start 40 minutes before the show goes off the air. you get your entrances in, and you have a banger match to close every episode of Raw. If you do that, if you do both those things in one episode of Raw, 40 minutes at the beginning, 40 minutes at the end, that leaves with, I don't know, just like an hour left of stuff that you got to fill, which is a lot easier, and it makes the episodes feel more important. And that's kind of what's lacking from Raw overall right now. The episodes are not feeling important. Another way to make Raw feel important is you want to, number 2, establish a killer mid-card. So watching any normal episode of Raw, you would never know. You would never get the idea that they actually do have one of the most talented rosters of actual wrestlers, like workhorses, of all the WWE brands. They never feature these wrestlers in prominent ways. At least they haven't recently with the way things are sort of structured now. Think about this. On the Raw brand, you've got AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Mustafa Ali, Ricochet, Sheamus, Matt Riddle, John Morrison, and The Miz. And yes, if you remember correctly, back in the day, The Miz used to be quite the workhorse. He could do dramatic storytelling. He could do long matches. He could do compelling in-ring action. He could do all that stuff. Now imagine that batch of people, Styles, Hardy, Ali, Ricochet, Sheamus, Riddle, Morrison, and The Miz, all trying to contend for that United States Championship. Maybe one of those guys would head up to the main event scene here and there, but McMahon seems to like the WWE title scene for the bigger, the sort of attraction wrestlers. Right now you got Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and of course Braun Strowman right now. Once Keith Lee comes back from wherever he is, you can loop him up in there. But then you can rotate these other names up into that scene, and you always get those great matches with like a really big dude and a small guy, and those are always the best matches anyways. But look at how they use that what should be that mid-card roster. You've got AJ Styles locked up in the tag team division as a thrown together tag team with Amos. They're the champions currently, but to be honest with you, that program that they're in right now is simply to get Amos over as like a singles guy, because there's no way they have tag team plans for him. He's huge. He's an attraction guy. They probably want to see where they can go with him and then elevate him up to a higher scene. Miz and Morrison are still doing the Bad Bunny celebrity thing, even though Bad Bunny's been gone for a while now. They need to split those guys up because they should be doing better things, and I think they're going to split them up soon. Sheamus, after months and months and months of putting on just spectacular matches, that was his thing. Long, physical, brutal matches, not cheap-shotting people. And yeah, he's a bad guy, so he's going to do a little bit of that. But man, this guy was putting on 20 to 25-minute matches on a regular basis with Matt Riddle, with Drew McIntyre. And now he's doing this US Open Challenge thing, which isn't for the title, which is a gimmick I actually like. And, you know, he's attacking people who show up for his challenge. That shouldn't be his thing. His thing should be, I'm not going to put my title up, but he also is going to win cleanly. And yeah, he might cut some corners here and there. He might, you know, lay it in an extra thick. He might poke an eye here and there. But Sheamus is the kind of guy who should be racking up really physical, brutal matches. And so people who step to him are going to be like, man, I'm going to be put through the ringer, but I'm up for this challenge. And he's the arrogant heel who wins clean, and nobody can touch that United States Championship. And there's the caveat is he doesn't put it up anyways, but he still wins. I think that's kind of ironic. That's kind of funny. I like that stuff. Now imagine he's doing that with like all these people right here, the Styles, the Hardys, the Alis, the Ricochets, the Riddles. I mean, that right there is compelling stuff. Who wouldn't want to see this amazing roster? But instead, what do? They've got, like I said, AJ tied up in the tag scene. You've got Mustafa Ali and Ricochet putting on decent, like really, really cool. Like I saw Ricochet do a shooting star press to a standing Mustafa Ali on this past week's main event. They've had a feud going on main event for like a while now. Same with Mansoor, who's new to the Raw roster. He's been on main event with like a 50-match win streak. They ended that on Raw on his debut. And then you've got Jinder Mahal, who he's got a new faction. I see him maybe doing like a main event scene with, I don't know, probably Drew McIntyre or Braun Strowman, because Jinder's a bigger guy put in there at the top when he comes back to Raw. But they just re-debuted him on main event. So yeah, you need to beef up that mid card, because otherwise you're stuck with like these thrown together matches what is it? RK Bro and taking on Elias and Riker, who I guess should just be in the tag division at this point. I don't know. It's just you've got all these. I forgot even to mention Randy Orton, who should really be still sort of in the main event scene. So you've got all these pieces that you just never see. They don't use these guys. All right, number 3, reboot the tag division. Over on SmackDown, you've got guys like the Street Profits, Dirty Dogs, and Mysterios in the Alpha Academy. And they're always featured on the show, and the titles have become kind of important over there. Not like super important. They are going to be defended on pay-per-view for the first time in seemingly forever at WrestleMania Backlash. But I'm pretty sure it's happening at WrestleMania Backlash. But, you've got some decent names in there, and you've got Alpha Academy, which is sort of thrown together, but now they're a solid tag team. Street Profits are a great team. The Dirty Dogs are really coming to their own, and you've got Dom and Ray. And you've got 4 solid tag teams, and then you've got the Usos coming back now that Jimmy's back, and they're all prominently featured on Raw. On SmackDown. On Raw, you have one legitimate, actual contending tag team. One. It's the New Day. You've got the tag champions are basically a dominant big man, and AJ Styles, who has turned into the guy who just gets beat up until he's able to get the tag into Omos. They're not like a true actual tag team, even though they are the tag team champions. Otherwise, who do you have? Lucha House Party? They just broke up Cedric and Shelton. It's a 3-hour show. You have no real mid-card. And you have no real men's tag division. That's a massive problem. That's a huge issue. Meanwhile, if you think about it, the 24/7 division is chock full of guys who should be... You've got actual family members. Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza. They've referenced that before. They've feuded before. Why not, on camera, they bury the hatchet and turn into a tag team? They're 2 of the most talented guys you have. Let some of Angel Garza's sort of attitude rub off a little bit on Carrillo. Give him a little bit of an edge, because the pure babyface thing just isn't going to work for him right now. You edge him up a little bit, you heal him up a little bit, and then you turn him back to face later on. They could be a killer tag team. What if you put Drew Gulak and R-Truth, 2 guys who are excellent wrestlers, but also huge personality guys, as sort of like a semi-comedic, but just really good wrestling tag team? Kind of like what they've done with Alpha Academy, how there's like sort of a comedic edge to their heel persona. Do the same thing, but with the face version of Gulak and R-Truth. I think people would really love that team if you really let them sort of build some chemistry together through vignettes and through just really good in-ring stuff. I don't know why they broke up Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. I don't know why. I mean, clearly it's to feud and apparently to make Cedric a singles guy. But I don't know why they took them out of the Hurt Business in the first place. It didn't make any sense. This was like a brotherhood, and then just willy-nilly they broke them up and they got them out of there. But they were an excellent tag team, and they just sort of started having them lose a lot, and it was kind of ridiculous. So that's what you need to do. You need to reboot the tag division. Number 4, overhaul the women's division there. You've got tons of talent, but it's so lacking in character depth or storyline progression. It's the most bizarre thing that for the longest time, for like 6 months, Asuka was basically just a bystander who started becoming, as champion, a parody of herself. She says the same thing over and over again. Nobody's ready for Asuka. And I know the knock is going to be from some of you, oh, well, her English isn't great. That's fine. Her Japanese is awesome. She sounds really cool when she's doing it, and you don't really need to know what she's saying for her to get her point across. It worked fine in NXT. It worked brilliantly in NXT. Why don't you change her up a little bit? She's been through a lot. Maybe change her character up a little bit. Maybe change her presentation up a little bit. Make her feared again. You got Rhea Ripley, who for some reason, and I can't really put my hands on exactly what it is because I haven't given it that much thought, but she's completely sort of changed her character from NXT into somebody who just comes out and sort of whines a bunch. Like, being a straight up heel just doesn't fit very well for her. And for some reason, and this is sort of besides the point, some wrestlers just don't have good chemistry, but her matches with her and Asuka just have not been great. So I don't know where she fits with Charlotte coming in, who clearly is heel number 1. She's kind of the Roman Reigns, head of the table of Raw. Where does that leave Rhea Ripley? Why did they bring her in as a heel if they were going to do this big character shift with Charlotte. Like, the two are not going to be able to coexist. It's going to be weird and awkward. They've been copying and pasting the same stories with Nia and Shayna and Lana and Naomi, and then you got a little bit of Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose thrown in there. Nobody really knows what anybody's doing there. Nobody has any real actual motivation in the women's division on Raw. You have Sonya Deville, who is sort of undermining Adam Pearce's authority with some sort of alliance with Charlotte. Run with that. Utilize that. Have Sonya Deville start taking over the women's division and booking that as her sort of pitch to the powers that be. Hey, I could be doing the entire show, not Adam Pearce, because he lets too many things get out of control. That's really where that should head. All this stuff should be interrelated in the show. Again, you've got 3 hours. Why are these things not interrelated? Next, number 5, this is an easy one. Ditch Miz TV. As I said earlier, Miz can be a workhorse. He can put on compelling matches. He can drop meaningful promos. He has been in meaningful stories. Why is he not in one now? I have been conditioned. This is not metaphorical. This is not embellishment. When I see Miz TV and he starts talking to the camera, I want to fall asleep because he says the same thing every single week. There was that one week where Maurice was with him and it was like, oh, cool. Some, a fresh breath of air, a breath of fresh air, a breath of fresh air. Cool. Maurice is there. They're going to do something with that. I think they're going to break up him and Morrison. They might have a feud, which is great. Maybe they'll put on some good matches. Maybe they'll let them have long matches. That'd be great. Earlier on in the workhorse category, I forgot to mention Damian Priest, but really he should be a main eventer too. Next, number 6. So yeah, get rid of Miz TV. All talk shows, to be honest with you. Speaking of talk shows, number 6, mix up your presentation a little bit. Get out of the talk shows. Enough of those. WWE used to run house shows, I believe, for each brand 4 days a week. I did a little bit of research on that. I looked at their calendar back in like 2018, 2019, and I looked at what they were running. They were like 4 house shows a week. These days, if I'm not mistaken, they just do TV. Now, I know they're going to get back to a house show schedule, but why don't you take, now that you're doing one day of working, why don't you take a second day and you have some production crews go out and film some stuff outside Thunderdome to air on TV? What I'm thinking is like when Mustafa Ali used to do those sort of video promos that he would just go out and shoot with his own camera guy, stuff like that, stuff that just really mixes up the presentation. I've mentioned this a little bit lately if you've been watching the show over Going in Raw. When I look at stuff like MLW Fusion, how if you just scroll through that show, everything looks different. It's just like a series of all these different things and then separated by matches, which look really dynamic because they film everything handheld. But you have such a variety of visual elements. It takes me back to the Dark Side of the Ring episode about Brian Pillman that just dropped this past week when Steve Austin was talking about the Pillman gun incident. And he said, anybody flipping around TV comes across this Brian Pillman, me coming into his house and he's got a gun, they're not going to be flipping off if they're just curious what this is. And that's totally true. You need a wider variety of things happening in that 3-hour span to justify the extra length. You're just doing the same thing over and over again every week. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's get some different visual styles. Let's get some different atmosphere. Let's get a bunch of different things going on. They kind of have that going on SmackDown a little bit when they put those Aleister Black vignettes with the animated stuff. That's good stuff. Do more of that. Get people outside of Thunderdome and film them just doing stuff and not those cheesy comedic sketches, although I guess you could do that too. But some, like, I don't know, stuff that makes them feel more relatable, more like human beings. Oh, they're out there doing stuff that I usually do. Mix up the presentation a little bit. Number 7. Oh, man, we're on number 7. Oh, okay, these are bonus. These last 3 are bonus ones. Okay, number 6, 7, 8, these are bonus because I was going to do 5 and I'm doing 8. Number 7, promote your show. Last Monday, Raw opened up with a coin flip to determine who was going to fight Bobby Lashley because it was announced a couple days in advance or a week earlier that somebody was going to fight Bob Lashley. That's not good promotion. You want to promote that stuff. And in fact, why are they having a big money match determined by a coin flip anyways? Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley was a WrestleMania. It did not main event, but it could have been a WrestleMania main event. It was a big deal. It actually opened the show, which is also a big deal. But there was that match, which really is a pay-per-view level match. Braun Strowman versus any of those guys a pay-per-view level match. Instead of having them get their hands on each other in a proper match, build to that and do other stuff. Maybe you have Bob Lashley go to the Performance Center, again outside the Thunderdome, and find some big dudes at the Performance Center that sort of have Braun type attributes, and then tap them out in like record time. Hey, they're a proxy for Braun. Look what I could do. That's just one idea. You just got to you got to promote your show a little bit better. Hey, at the end of every AEW Dynamite, what do? They list off like 5 things that you have to look forward to for next week. Hey, this will set up in this episode. That's this week. Next week, we're going to do that. They do that a little bit here and there on Raw. But again, it's a 3-hour show. You should be planning this stuff in advance. That's one of those things that's probably never going to happen, though, because Vince likes to come in at the last minute and rip everything up. And then finally, this one is just sort of a character thing. Why are characters just sort of suddenly turning on a dime their character? This happened with Bob Lashley in the Bobby Lashley in the lead up to WrestleMania. If somebody's going to change their character, you really need to show that progression happen. I mean, I know that could happen in real life, but like, how often does somebody literally turn into a different person, personality wise in real life? It doesn't happen very often. You need catalysts. You need moments that they learn from, that they have to deal with to get them to that point. Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Business went from one thing, this brotherhood who were protecting their business, their careers at all costs together as an undefeatable unit. And then just willy-nilly, Bobby Lashley said, hey, you guys get out of here because you're not helping me. Our brotherhood doesn't matter anymore. And Bobby Lashley all of a sudden was a different person. So before you start turning people into different characters, personality-wise, ask yourself, why is this happening? What would it take to get them from A to B? What steps do you need to take along the way? I'm going to stop rambling. That's where I get off the bus here, because none of this stuff's going to happen. But honestly, I think Raw in its current form is totally fixable. I know that there are some of you out there who are like, oh yeah, no, Raw's fun. It's great. Sure. Whatever. I don't know, man. I've heard a lot of people exclaim quite the opposite. It's a bore fest. It's a snooze fest. It's 3 hours long. It feels like it's 8 hours long. So yeah, that's sort of what I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Check out these videos that I have right here under me for more stuff here at WrestleJuice. Thanks everybody for talking or for hanging out. Till next time, we'll talk to you later. Oh, I talked a lot today.